Well, I'm so excited you're here. Cheryl Handy is is an Atlantic VA healthcare system's first Caritas coach, and she was also the first Caritas coach in the state of Georgia. She began this journey when she went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and she was in the Grand Teton Mountains, and she believes that, and I think it's true, during one of the sacred smudge ceremonies of the Native Americans, there was a wonderful experience of something that drastically changed her life. And that's what can happen. She began her career in the VA system in 1983 after completing her Bachelor's of Science degree at Dillard University in New Orleans. And then she completed her Master's of Nursing degree and also a major in nursing administration at Emory University. So for over 25 years, she has maintained her certification and been a nurse executive. She's also a member of many, many nurse organizations, including the American Nurses Association, the American Academy of Ambulatory Care Nursing, Sigma Theta Tau Honor Society. Society, and she has been working with Dr. Jean Watson at Watson Caring Science as one of her faculty since she's been there a long time, but she's been providing coaching and mentoring to new people who are learning just about Jean's theory and also integrating caring into their different systems. So she also is a heart math. She also received her heart math certification, which is a fantastic organization in Boulder Creek, California, and she has become a heart math certified trainer. So one of the things I can say about Cheryl is she's got a big, beautiful heart, and she's got an incredible illuminated spirit. And she is one of the most precious people I've ever met, and she's a leader and inspiration and mentor in my life. And I'm so excited that you're here this morning and you're going to share your thoughts on I read in your title about courage, and I think it's amazing. It's come up with different people's as I've been interviewing different speakers.
Interesting.
And actually one of the last speakers, the dean of my College of Nursing, Anna McDaniel, she talked about courage. So it's amazing how one thing flows into another. So I think it's resonant. It resonates with me that at this point in time, how important courage is and how important faith is and how important caring is. So I wanted to ask you to tell us and the people that are listening, your visions as one of the leaders, the visionary leaders, as we move into this next decade and how we can create the future.
Okay. Well, first of all, Mary, I want to thank you for this opportunity and just thank you for that very gracious introduction. As I reflected on your title, I had to go deep within my inner spirit to actually find something that resonated within me. And again, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge living legend, Dr. Jean Watson, because literally, I can say this in all honesty, and each of us can say that being involved in this work has literally changed the trajectory of my life. So I'm just very grateful and very thankful for that. But with that being said, also want to highlight that her amazing work, her phenomenal work and vision for this higher vibrational consciousness and to expand the consciousness of humanity, which has been long needed for some time. Actually, she has set the path, provided the blueprint for us and the guideposts for us. So quite naturally, we are not surprised when crises and pandemics and epidemics and uncertainties and chaos emerge. Because in this given consciousness, you clearly recognize, and you come to recognize, if you don't initially clearly recognize, that all things in our life force, they're illusory, they're impermanent, and they're transitory. And with that being said, I can always just relate to my life journey, particularly in healthcare. And I think one of the reasons why we all have come together collectively, because we do have kindred spirits and we have like energies, and we are attracted, not by coincidence. The universe has brought us all together.
Mhm.
But if ever there's a time to be bold in an evolution trajectory of human mankind, it is now. A lot of what we are experiencing right now is due to the collective unconsciousness of this planet. You know, Dr. Watson talks about that throughout her work, you know, just to highlight her, but even Martha Rogers talked about that as energy fields and all of this work. And until we can understand, particularly as a profession, understand the human consciousness aspect of health and how it ties and unfolds a totally different journey for us, we will still remain at that crossroad where we're stuck and just being comfortable with conforming to the status quo.
Mhm.
And over time, we've seen that exist for quite some time. What's required now to emerge into this next age, and the thing about the planet and astrology and the universe and the way the universe emerges, it does not wait for permission. You know, it's got to emerge, transcend, and evolve, and it's doing that already. So what's happening is that for humanity, it's taking us time to catch up. Because I always interject this. I love astrology and have a tendency to dive into other concepts and philosophies outside of nursing. And as we embark upon this new age, the age of Aquarius, and leave that more reductionistic age of Pisces, where there was a duality, and we emerged to this sense of oneness, this relational, as Dr. Watson would say, the relational unitary consciousness. It is more vital and important that we have frameworks in our profession that can guide not only the discipline of nursing, but the profession of nursing. And the interesting thing about this is that we know this already, but too often it's not that we become comfortable because of bureaucracies in many cultures, and out of fear, we just sit. We sit in silence. And even sitting in silence have allowed each of us to participate in the destruction of this planet. You know, the universe is moaning and groaning for a new way of being, and caring science has all the components that can help us get there. So it's a matter of, and as I network with colleagues on a local and even national level, this is what I'm told, and I'm sure others have been told this. Cheryl, we recognize your passion and we understand your passion, but you know, this is in order for us to sustain what we need in this business, we need to just go along. But now is the time is now for us to collectively emerge
Mhm.
from a space of compassion, from a space of love, from a space of courage, and actually, and utilizing the innate yin energy within ourselves to say, hey, this is what we need. Um, Recently, I reviewed a book that I had not seen in some time. It was an excellent book written by Dr. Watson herself and Dr. Marcia Hills. And in that book, it was so amazing and so fascinating where they talked about creating a caring science curriculum as an emancipatory pedagogy for nursing.
Mhm.
Again, I say the blueprint, the guideposts are already there. It's just a matter of all of us coming together collectively and saying, hey, this is what needs to be done, and this is what we're going to do. And for organizations, that they build some collaborative, cohesive approach to supporting their leaders, nurse leaders within structures that have a vision to move outside of the mainstream and outside of what's required in the status quo. And I also want to acknowledge Northern Kaiser because that group there has done a phenomenal, amazing job. I'm proud to say that I have been with the VA system for a number of years, over 35 years now, but there's a lot of growth that we have to do within the system. We have some very bright phenomenal nurse leaders within the system, but because of the politics and bureaucracy of such a system, we too have been silenced in many ways. And I'm not saying that from a space of criticizing the system, because quite frankly, I've remained there because of my passion for working and providing caring services and promoting and fostering cultures for healing for our nation heroes. But in fact, there's a lot of work to be done within this large culture as far as us supporting one another and actually being the voice to step out and say, it is time for a new way of knowing and becoming, and the time is now. So I'm particularly concerned because if we don't embark upon this new complementary integrated modalities, looking at intentionality, authentic presence, consciousness, recognizing the life force and the energy fields that we are, that the system will not. Those old reductionistic worldviews of how to manage and lead and conduct healthcare, it's gone. It has collapsed. Actually, the system is broken. I think there's hope, but it's going to have to take a bold, radical stance. And I think within the nursing system, we have, there are a number of Caritas coaches within the system. There are a number of nurse leaders within the system that support caring science. And it's going to take caring science to move, particularly that culture forward, particularly in nursing. It really is.
So tell me one of your ideas that I think is what you're saying is really critical and very important. What are some of the bold steps that you can recommend if you're standing, it's true, the time is now to act, be bold, be brave, be courageous, practice caring science as a fundamental foundation of love, compassion. What are some of the bold steps, if you could dream them and create them? What would some of them be?
Well, I don't actually categorize it as bold, but it was an initial step, something that I did within my local organization after becoming a Caritas coach.
Right.
I recognize the importance of providing this enlightened way of being and consciousness into the organization. So I did advocate and implement a program called the Caritas Literacy Skills Fair. Historically, nurses have spent a significant, particularly nurse executives, a significant amount of time focusing on the importance of technical and clinical competencies, but little effort had been placed in focusing on ontological competencies of Caritas literacy. So to me, that will be a start along. I'm not saying when I mention boldness that to start some type of war, because I'm totally against that. It would be a direct contradiction in who I am and what we represent as Caritas coaches and Caritas ambassadors. But we have a unique opportunity in the system. And what I mean being bold is as a collective group of nurse leaders, particularly within the VA system, to stand for something that we know will change the system in a tremendous way, in a positive way for the future. And we have not always done that out of fear.
So what I hear you saying, which I think is a really good step, is creating a collective of nursing leaders who have a strong value system and creating positive and caring changes, that as we collect ourselves and connect with each other and support each other, that one of the ways we can reach out and create this future is by embracing a collective. Because what I feel like the whole important point of this Tell It Summit is to create, there's many different voices, but we're creating a collective.
Exactly.
Possibilities and be in communication with each other. So I would think in these systems, one of the first steps would to be reaching out to each other and supporting each other.
And supporting one another, excuse me. Exactly. That's exactly what we needed. At one point, we did do that, but when as Congress changes policies, and politicians changes, and all of that, for some reason we just stop. And literally, those who stand boldly and have a voice in saying, "Hey, there's always other ways of doing things." They're literally, and again, I reiterate that I'm not saying this from a space of criticism or anything, but a space of reality. Realities and truths have to also be told. And I was just comparing this to a conversation that I had recently with my son, and he and I both love philosophers and reading about philosophers. And uh, when I talked about the analogy that we used, well, I used, and he somewhat said, well, I guess that is somewhat the same, Mom. It's when we had a discussion with one of our former centuries philosophers, Plato. And Plato, if you're familiar with this, because most of us in high school or by college, we had read the Allegory of the Cave, Plato's Allegory of the Cave. In many ways, and this allegory is a story of Plato and his philosopher and his teacher, Socrates. They
Right.
were trying so hard to enlighten the people and say, hey, there's a better way to live, the better way to be empowered and to awaken to the reality of what actually exists. Because in this story, there were a group of people who were chained in bondage in a cave. And the only reality perceptions of images that they saw um, or as murals on the wall. So one day, one of the individuals were released from the chain, and it's not clear about how they
Right.
were released or why they were released, but they were able to leave that spot and go out into the open and see the beauty and the awe of nature and trees and say, hey, the reality of what we had in this darkness is not actually true. Look at what we have, the beauty that surrounds us. And to me, I related to the experience that I too had in Jackson Hole. I was so conditioned at one point to believe certain things and doing things a certain way. And I actually had an enlightening spirit experience. And I can say that for not only for myself, but all of the anybody who have an opportunity and are blessed to meet Jean, you're going to have that experience. But particularly after you matriculate through the Caritas Coach Education Program. But
Right.
after the experience and you go back, you're so excited. You're so excited. Look, this is a different way of doing things. We don't have to continue to do things this way. Let's focus and let's work from a heart-centered intelligence of radiating love and compassion and being that healing environment, Securitas nurse. But just like the stories, a story and a legend from many, many years ago, even today in modern day times, it still happens. When you bring about or interject something that's different, new ways of knowing and being. Not to say the old way was something wrong with that, but it's good to add, different ways and embark upon new dimensions of understanding. You're labeled, you're judged, and you're ostracized. But again, I'm hopeful because what happens is that too often we sit back and we stand back and say, well, I'm not going to be a part of things. But at this point right now, we're forced. With this pandemic, I think it has been an awakening for all of us. It's very unfortunate. It's a very sad situation. But unfortunately, this had to happen. And I'm not saying it from a space because I have family and no friends and people who are affected in this. It's horrific. But even with this pain and suffering and the pain that this virus has caused, there's and this chaos and uncertainty, and all of this pain and suffering, it was necessary. It's part of the evolutionary process. And after all of this, I am convinced that we're going to learn something different, if nothing else, duality in which we were once comfortable with. You're seeing even families, spending more time together, neighbors are checking on one another, communities are taking care of one another, countries are trying to check on one another. So even with that, even with the disheartening situation and the suffering that has emerged from this pandemic and this virus, there is hope. There is hope for this universe. There's hope for this planet. But getting back to nursing and the innate yin energy that we resonate, we're in a unique position. And I'm not sure if we can manifest this locally, but collectively at the national, international levels through the American Nurses Association and all of these professional organizations, it should be some radical mandate to move forward and not to continue to just sit and wait. I know Dr. Watson has tried to do that for many years, and with her profound vision for this work, 40 plus years now, it often takes maybe centuries for this work to evolve. But we have to keep the pace, we have to be steady, continue to articulate the work and the reason for this work and the reality of this work in all areas of our life and our journey. Even with me, even in my church, I have initiated a group of Caritas care ministry. So I'm saying wherever we go, there's a need for this level of work. And you would think that in an area in the ministry that people will understand this. They understand it from a dogmatic religious standpoint, but very little people have been socialized to understand, as French philosopher coined in the early centuries, that we are actually spiritual beings having a human experience, and from that spirituality, emerges energy fields, and we have to be very cognizant and protective of the love and compassion that we radiate from our heart center and not our brain center. Heart math is very good with that as well, with the heart energy and cognizant about how we can actually create that healing environment as nurses or non-nurses, just by recognizing that we hold vibrations, energetic vibrations in our heart center.
Right. So I love the idea of a radical mandate.
I'm sorry?
Yes, I love your idea of a radical mandate. How we can move forward into a future with a commitment. One of the things that's coming up for me is the collective.
Yes.
And the unitary field of consciousness is now changing.
Exactly.
And there is a consciousness of being courageous.
Yes.
Being caring.
Yes.
And standing up and speaking.
Exactly.
So tell me more about this radical, if there was a radical mandate, if it was something we could speak to ourselves and each other, can you just sort of formulate an idea of what that would be from your perspective?
Well,
if you could make such a thing.
If I could make such a thing, that's really an interesting question. And let me see how I can frame that. Because in this type of consciousness, and I think that's part of the challenge that we continue to have, because I'm going back to even Dr. Watson, I don't think she initially studied, I'm going to do this. It's just that as spiritual beings, and particularly those who are conscious beings, there's an energy or there's a vision that's planted within your heart, and you don't know where it came from. It just comes, so you're working off, and it's a challenge because, modern science and technology, they want to have evidence, they want to see the quantitative data, and I've been criticized of that because I can speak boldly and about metaphysical experiences and qualitative experiences, but even the challenges and obstacles that even I face is that there's not a lot of research out there in those areas. Even recently, for a graduate program interview, I was told, well, Cheryl, you know, you are very passionate about what you want to do, but you're not a right fit here because we're still focusing on quantitative research. Quantitative research. So, and these are nursing colleagues still stuck in that mindset of we can't do anything differently, or we're not comfortable with doing anything differently. So, to answer that question, I put myself in that position, is that I have to continue to be confident. Mm-hmm. You have to continue to be courageous and be bold in whatever form that you're in to articulate that this is what is needed at this important point in time. I can't say, well, there's data that says this. I'm sure Jean or someone else, I can't say that right now. All I'm saying is that there's been a vision placed within my heart, within my soul, to assist Jean, you, all of our Caritas colleagues, and even the collective body of nursing to sustain the legacy of care and science and continue moving it forward. I mean, even with saying that alone has given me hope, because look at the philosophers that we now talk about or we study, you know, it takes years to manifest. At least we have a vision, you know? So we can't become too discouraged when the vision doesn't manifest, always manifest in our lifetime. But as it is written, write your vision clear on the tablet and it will surely come. So I think the forward thrust path for us is to continue the path, continue the pace. One of the things that I would like to see, particularly in a system that I'm passionate about, that is so broken, is to collectively, through the chief nursing officer out of DC, collectively come together and maybe we could have some summit, you know, to address these type of issues and say, hey, we can no longer stay silent because this is what is happening here. This is what has happened. We've seen that. We've seen it with the data. When you look at staff as well as patient satisfaction scores, reveals that what happens when you're manifesting non-caring behaviors. The data speaks for itself.
It does. So we do have a vision. What I hear you saying, which is really beautiful, is we do have a vision. We do have hope for the future. It's a matter of keeping that vision and keeping it in our hearts, and how we can hold this vision inside of ourselves and stand up. And I was wondering if you could just share, since we're coming to a closure, share a heart math focusing with the group as we conclude this time with you. Has been so precious and so wonderful. I was wondering if you might be able to lead us in a heart math coherence exercise.
Okay, sure, certainly. One of the resilient techniques is heart math, and the first self-regulating technique is heart-focused breathing. So just like with any centering exercise, you want to make sure you're in a comfortable position. And those who are comfortable with closing your eyes, I ask that you do so. And if you're not comfortable, it's okay to leave your eyes open. And at this time, focus your attention in the area of the heart. And as you focus your attention in the area of the heart, just imagine your chest going in and out, the inner breaths and the out breath. And just think about the beauty of our life force, the beauty and the miracle of giving this opportunity as a human being to breathe, and the beauty and miracle of breathing. The unique thing about heart-focused breathing, as with any centering exercise, and heart math techniques uses this as a resilience technique, because if you're in a stressful situation, too often we have been conditioned to react almost immediately to situations. So heart-focused breathing gives us an alternative, a choice point to pause, breathe, reverence the beauty and miracles of life, appreciate this gift that we have been given of life, of breath, of beauty, of awe, which is a form of grace as well.
Mm.
We didn't ask for it, it just happens. And when you go into this deep space, you recognize, wow, the beauty of all life, the interconnectedness of all life, the reverence of all life is sacred, is special, and the interconnectedness of our souls. And when you're ready, you come back into that space, more relaxed, more caring, more peaceful, more loving, more courageous, and ready to step into the next phase that's needed in this evolution for human consciousness.
Ah, I feel it. And thank you so much for this wonderful time with you. It's been precious.
Thank you.
And what I'd like to ask you, I'm asking each speaker to share a gift. And what I really would love for you to do is, if there is an opportunity, to create a little postcard that has how to do the heart math focusing, would be a wonderful gift for the listeners. So they can download a little PDF or something for them to reference in their day and in their life. You know, one of those, a little postcard or something to give them as a gift would be a wonderful takeaway from your time that I've spent with you and from the experience that we just had.
Certainly will be my pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much, Cheryl. I love you. Thank you so much.
Love you more. Namaste.
Namaste. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.